Good morning, everybody. I'm Elyse as Another Truth on YouTube. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I do appreciate the time that you have taken to listen to something that I have to say. Today is just more of a discussion on some things I have on my mind and a personal update. And of course, this audio only video will have a content warning because I might bring up topics like YouTube's weird rules, mental illness, sadness, grief, friendships, things like that. So, um, if you're not interested in hearing about those things or anything, please, come back at another time when I'm talking about something less triggering. It's okay, I understand. I hope that all of you are doing well and that you're taking exceptional care of yourselves. So I just want to start by talking about one thing. I kind of need to make a clarification. Someone politely sent a clarification on their own. Now, when I reference Colleen Ballinger as Miranda Ballinger, I mean, ideally I should be addressing Colleen Ballinger's nonsense by her name since she is the originator of all of this. I do this deliberately because, as far as I'm concerned, Colleen Ballinger and Miranda Ballinger are one and the same, and Colleen has even stated in a video on a nationally syndicated evening variety show, whatever, that she is, that Miranda Sings is sort of an extension of her. She uses Miranda Sings as a way to express and talk about what's on her mind that she herself can't talk about. Well, I mean, her character is her. I mean, she's as nasty as her character. So that's why I say Miranda Ballinger sometimes as opposed to Colleen Ballinger contextually. So there's that. And I understand that Charlotte's channel was terminated, according to the TOS that I read. If she had a channel and she circumvented that, or if she were featuring people, banned users in her platform in a way to deliberately kind of circumvent them and circumvent the, you know, the termination or the ban, I can see that. But I mean, if you're talking about if a channel person is talking about somebody who keeps reemerging after termination to harass people, to cause problems and stuff like that, I don't see how that would qualify as a ban. It just seems to me that um, people who continuously get banned for their egregious behavior in return can still have a platform and be able to appeal it. And I think that might have been what that original banned person might have done. And this can be a way to get back at people who talk about them through their many terminations and prohibited reappearances. I don't know, but I think this is just a blanket ban instead of looking at the problem and evaluating it from that standpoint. I mean, they allow the worst of the worst to still cause problems on YouTube, to disrupt the nature, that disrupt other people's lives and cause egregious problems and allow them to fight to stay on. And they ban people for a single instance of it or whatever. I mean, it's just amazing to me. YouTube is going down in flames, and if they ban me for that, oh well. I think it's a really shitty move, and Charlotte and I don't have the same ideology in life. I haven't watched her in quite some time, and um, I'm sure there's no love lost between us or anything, but I think that this really shows that you can't talk about problematic behavior, existing ongoing problematic behavior, without the fear of getting your channel terminated. And if someone keeps returning and causing problems when they're not supposed to, why isn't YouTube trying to make it more difficult for those people to get back on, um, instead of going after people who talk about them? Now, I don't know how much Charlotte talked about this person. I don't know all the details of every live or video about this behavior or something. If the person was banned, and let's say they were on TikTok doing something else or causing trouble elsewhere, yeah, I mean, I can see that, but it's not clear. And I think this is just a blanket ban. Um, it's not clear. I mean, it's clear that there's no room for nuance. There's no room for examining anything. So now you can't even do anything, because if that original person was already banned, you can't talk about them. You can't move forward necessarily to do anything, because there's no recourse for people who reappear. Now, I thought that the circumvention meant for people, sometimes on those, there's certain types of shows where people, or videos where people will reappear on their friend's channel or an alt channel, or somewhere else, okay, on the platform. And I can understand that, but having a discussion about a problematic YouTuber expressing concerns about that, whatever, and they keep reappearing, I don't see how that falls under this TOS, unless this TOS violation, or this rule, unless this is just a blanket ban on everything and they don't make any distinctions. I don't know. But it's just, no wonder people are, I mean, Rumble doesn't have what YouTube has in many ways, but at least people are free to keep addressing the problem, and YouTube is just kind of, eventually YouTube will be left to the reprobates, and they're going to run it, because, I mean, obviously at the end of the day, that's probably where they make their money, is having these people, and what's the point of having rules if it doesn't apply to everybody? Okay, enough about that. Now, I don't know all this situation because I haven't watched Charlotte. I'm just seeing it superficially, so please correct me if I'm wrong. With facts, please. I need to know the facts about this. If you have anything to offer, I'm grateful to you, and I'll listen to it. And I suppose the next thing I want to talk about is friendships, but I don't know. I had an incident, not an incident, but something happened a couple of weeks ago. I mentioned earlier, I think last year, I had to end a 25-year relationship, just let it go. And it's a 25-year relationship. We met at work. And so it started off as a work friendship. And, we stayed in touch, and, I moved away. I didn't really have a lot of connection with the workplace other than the people who we served. But I wasn't there very long. And to be honest, there were some kind of, I had mixed feelings about this employer. They were great with some things, they were right with some things, and they weren't with others. And so, I didn't have a lot of footing here. I didn't have an established long-term relationship, whereas my friend did. She worked at this place for, I think, over 3 decades. I only spent 3 years. So, anyway, or almost 3 years, I should say. Anyway, so we had been friends, and our friendship was based on love and care. There's no doubt about that. And my friend was there for me at least a couple of times when I needed that kind of friendship. And I appreciated that. And I tried to be emotionally supportive, but now after all this time, I realize I was overstaying my welcome. And I knew it by then because, I try not to, at this point, keep looking at slights against me. There was a pattern where, um, there was some patterns of alienation, and I would react to that, and then I would alienate in reaction to that. So it's sort of like this toxic connection. And I hate saying this about this person because she is a wonderful lady, to her community and to the friends that she does love. To me, I can't tell her how she feels. I can't say that. It's not up to me. But what she qualifies as love for me is not what I would consider love. I think that if it were a matter of love and having respect, I would rather have the respect and earn that respect, because to me, that is more meaningful than someone saying that they love me and then they shit on me at the same time. And I think earning that respect means to draw boundaries. Anyway, so I received a text a couple of weeks ago, and originally, the message first stated, it said, "I hope you're well. I'm just looking at messages from old friends," or something like that. I don't remember the whole thing. And then there were a bunch of emojis. And at first I thought it was a new friend that I made at the committee I was on, because her cell phone had been on a commission, and I didn't really recognize the number right off. So I thought maybe she got a new phone or whatever. It wasn't. When I typed back who it was this former friend, and I will address her as a former friend. And I wasn't sure how to react. Meaning, should I have reacted respond at that point, or not respond at all, or wait? Because I did not want to talk to this person anymore. I did not want to associate with this former friend. I had made myself clear, and I had made my silence clear. And I think as I was contemplating, another message or two came up that this person loved me, and um, that she wondered about my decision. Now, it's interesting timing, and there's a lot of reasons for things that I will explain later. So I started to write my reply. I decided to write the reply. And of course, I don't like this mode of discussion, but it is one it seemed that she felt comfortable with. So I started typing out my response, and it took a while for me to respond carefully and in consideration of everything, at least from my viewpoint. Now, I'm only giving you my side of this, so take it as you will. And as I'm writing this, and carefully thinking about it, um, she kept sending messages, like sending pictures of things. And I mean, I didn't read all the messages because I was busy. I was focused on my reply. Pictures, I don't know these people, things I don't recognize. And because I can't help it, if I'm typing this, the messages pop up. So finally, I'm assuming she was talking about her stuff, what was going on in her life and everything. At that point, I was not interested in that. At that point, I was interested in getting my goodbye message even more clear than the last one. Because at this point, I was done. I was done. I was done almost a year ago. I was definitely done by now. And I had explained to her how I felt that, I felt unequal in the friendship, that I was left out of a lot of things. I had explained why I felt that way. I explained it before, how I felt unequal, how I felt not part of these things, how she alienated me, time and time again. And I did it in such a respectful manner. But I also said, I also overstayed my welcome. I also put myself in that position because I wanted someone to talk to. I wanted a, a friend to, a friendship. But in the back of my mind, I know that she wasn't interested in having that level of friendship with me. She was not interested in that. She made it clear by many examples through the years. Through her lack of support, through her passive aggressive behavior, and things like that. And wherever I had improvement or I made improvements, there was no celebration, there was no care, there was nothing from her. And even up to the point of my graduation, I'll get to that. That's why I had to explain some of these things to her in the text as much as I could without doing that. But I was very strict. I wasn't mean. I was very strict about my boundaries, how I felt, how I participated in this, how it was toxic for both of us, that I could not keep playing a part in this. That I need more supportive people in my environment, closer, different types of friendships that I need, and all that. And then I told her that my silence and that last message was my goodbye. That was my decision. And at the very end, I just told her goodbye. It wasn't like I said all this bunch of stuff and then it was goodbye. I did it in a very professional and sophisticated way that I could do it. And this is not the form I would have chosen to discuss this, but this is the way it seemed preferred and easier for her. So I did that. And then she started, um, there was some break, and then she wrote back something about relationships and how I didn't make her feel equal. She didn't get the point that I'm saying goodbye. And she was not respecting my boundaries. And so at this point, I blocked her, and I blocked her email. And I can't block her completely out of my heart at this point, but I'm not going to cry over this. I've done enough, I've had my emotions about this. I've already grieved it. It's done. It's completely done. My takeaway from this is she didn't even address me by my name in this text. She didn't ask me how I was doing because that would have invited a conversation of a different kind. She was not interested in addressing any things that I had to say, my feelings or expressions from the last time. She said she was looking over messages from old friends. I had my 50th birthday this year. That would have been a great time um, to talk about that. It would have made me feel good. It would have made me feel appreciated, at least to resolve a problem. Even if we couldn't be friends anymore, at least it would have been the gift of a proper discussion about things. She didn't invite that. She didn't call me. She didn't ask if it was okay to call me. She didn't even ask me if it was okay to send messages to me, given how I left. There was no respect for my boundaries, my feelings. And she did not acknowledge anything that I had to say. It was just completely defenseless instead of being supportive and understanding and talking it over. Even if we still could not be friends and still had to part ways, okay? Just her care and consideration in it would have been enough, but there was none. She wasn't interested. She was interested in showboating. She was interested. I feel like this was another passive aggressive move on her part. And I don't think she realizes sometimes that she does this. And this, I'm not the only person who's had this kind of issue with her, um, that I know of, because she's told me she's had um, problems with other people. There are reasons for this. And I can empathize, I understand that, but I am not going to be her audience. I don't want to be her audience. My life is just as interesting. Um, my life, yeah, I may not have all the drama in my life, but I have other things in place of that are more meaningful and make me happy. They make me feel good about being on this planet, being alive, being, all of these things I didn't imagine I would have without the drama, without hanging on to people who didn't really love me, really didn't care about me. And I think at the end of the day, she just wanted to showboat and throw it in my face. And I don't even care. Like when people tell me, not too many people have said this to me, but when people have told me, or they accuse us in general of being jealous of, say, Katie Joy. No, I'm not jealous. If I'm not jealous of Emily D. Baker, I'm not jealous of KJ. If I'm not jealous of Emily D. Baker's kindness, care, and professionality, why on earth would I be jealous of a former friend's success, even while we were friends? No way. Now, one of the things that really hurt me was back around the time that I completed school. I was graduating. I was preparing for that. Um, my former friend, well, she was still a friend at the time, said, "Oh, Elyse, because she told me she was going on a radio show, a local radio show, very local, and she was going to discuss. She was invited onto the program to discuss." Things that are going on in her community, because she's sort of like a, a community leader in her art, because she's a fine artist. She's amazing. She is amazing. Um, Amazingly community oriented person. And she is a gifted, educated artist, a professional artist. Now, we talked about art sometimes, and she would give me some tips and tricks and things to try at home and stuff to help me kind of get out of my shell with art. But what convinced me to get me out of my shell was actually a class I had in disability justice, um, actually it's called disability studies, but I always call it disability justice. And that taught me about art. Art in a certain way, expressing, critiquing art from other people with different abilities, but also to interpret the world through that. Now, I can't assess art. I'm not an art assessor. I'm not into that. And it's not my thing, but it's not my job, but it's something that I do when I go to the art museum, or I'm looking at other people's art, or I'm in art class or whatever, and doing that and giving feedback and stuff. But I'm not like a professional. But anyway, so um, I started doing collaging because that's one of the not easier things, but it's one of the things that I could do without feeling self-conscious. There is a reason for that. I mean, as studies have done about adults who kind of resist art therapy, why it's harder to do art therapy with them. And I remember because I had art therapy when I was a kid, and of course, art therapy is much different than being trained in art or schooled in art or doing art out of out of um, a joy or a hobby. I mean, it's different, but I had a lot of art therapy, so I also had a chance to look at it through that viewpoint. And so I started creating collages of things to help fight, certain types of oppression against uh, people with disabilities like myself. I have invisible disabilities and I have mental health disabilities, and it's often stereotyped, and I don't get like the kind of support that someone else with a certain physical disabilities might get. And I have to fight harder for a lot of things, and especially if it's compounded with a personality disorder, forget it. I don't have people who say good job for working through your emotions or anything like that in any community, you know. Um, but anyway, but I worked through that through doing this collaging, and through as my graduation approached, like when people decorate their caps and gowns and everything. So in my cap, I did a collage, sort of a collage and some expressions of things um, celebrating disability justice history of the disability rights movement, um, some of the important people in my life, how I owned up to my borderline, because my theme was black and white, borderline awareness. And so my whole ensemble was based on that type of expression, um, to validate myself, which is okay to do. And that's a type of artistic expression. And my former friend did recognize that the cap was beautiful. I don't think she understood how meaningful it was to me, what I was trying to express in that. I didn't end up going to my graduation for um, not just one reason. There were other things going on, but I still did that cap. I still celebrated at home, and it was fine. That was good enough for me at that point, because I didn't feel like that school deserved um, my adoration at that point. I finished my degree. That's all that matters. I finished what I needed to finish to be able to do what I need to do. So anyway, my friend went on this talk show. I guess it was great. She talked. I didn't listen to it live, um, but I listened to it through an archive because she said, "Elyse, go look, go listen to it. I brought you up. I mentioned you." I'm like, "What?" I don't remember her. I don't remember giving her permission to discuss anything about me on this radio show. But I guess you don't need permission, just like I don't need her permission to talk about my experience here. Um, so I listened to this and I was aghast at her audacity, and not in the good frame. She did mention my insecurity, like many other adults around art, but she failed to bring up the fact that I had overcome that with a powerful message. No, that's where I understood the cracks in this friendship. It was one of many things through the years. And she had to set her boundaries with me plenty of times. I tested her boundaries. I'm not going to do that. But this was something entirely different. And some people will, and she didn't use my name or anything, which is great. But she had the audacity, and not in a good way, to make me listen to that. For what reason? To help her to listen to herself aggrandize? To make it a point that she is so much better than me? I wanted to be there to celebrate the fact that she was on it. I didn't care whether or not she talked about me on there. I wasn't even thinking about that, I should say. But I also don't remember giving her permission to talk about this very private conversation. But I guess, again, she doesn't need to do it because here I am talking about it. Anyway, and talking about her, what I felt was inappropriate. And then there was something else that happened, and I knew then she was just fucking with my mind. And I said, okay, I've had enough. I've had enough. It's obvious that I am not the friend that she wants in her life, that she wants an audience rather than a real friendship from me. And I think using the word love and all of these other things are just manipulative tactics to be able to draw me back in so she can push me back down. And I don't think she realizes it. And if she does realize it, she's pretty cruel. But I don't think she understands that. And I'm not here to explain that to her. I'm not interested in explaining that to her. I don't need to. All I need to do is just express my experiences and my reaction to it. And, it's not to intentionally vilify her, but I do think that, you have to draw a boundary. And if you evaluate your own friendships, and you feel like you're giving up a lot, whether it's giving up your time, your energy, and you're not being treated with respect, if you haven't earned your friends' respect, what's the point? Yes, they could still love you. They probably can't be with you if you're a pain in the butt. That might have been the case in this situation, but I also felt that I was not an equal. I also felt that it was almost as if she was ashamed of being around me, or ashamed of celebrating anything that I did well, even though I still celebrate her. I still think she's doing wonderful things with her life, and I'm happy for her. But I'm not going to participate in a friendship, and I'm certainly not going to bring it up when she had overstepped my boundaries, because that time she sent that text with everything going on, no way. No way I was going to sit there and sing her praises. No, there was no reason for me to do that. It would have been inappropriate of me to do that in that case, given what was happening. I didn't need to make that consideration. All I needed to consider was to reiterate what I said when we last spoke almost a year ago, and that was it. And then make myself probably a little bit more clear, add some more finality, a final message, real solid final message, because I had had enough. And yeah, I'm angry about that. Her shamelessness and audacity to do that. I mean, it wasn't even an offer of reconciliation. It wasn't even an offer to talk about what is going on, or even to address her experiences with it. At that point, I wasn't interested. If she didn't send me all this other stuff and she said, I'd really like to talk to you, I feel alienated or whatever, still, I may not have been willing to do that, but I would have had more respect for her had she done that. And she called it for me I needed space. Yes, it was permanent space from her. It was permanent. And I told her it was permanent. I told her my silence was my decision. And those are hard words. But when you have someone oversteps your boundaries, you've got to be strict. You've got to be very, very strict. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't know anything like that. All I know is, if I saw her on the street and she said, "Hello, Elyse," I'm not going to reach out to her. I'm not going to be interested. But if she reached out to me, I'll just say, "Hello, good morning." That's it, and move on. That's the extent of it. It's done. And I want it to be done. And I did it a normal way instead of just saying, "F you, you don't give a shit about me," this and that. And then that's it. And then blow up. Because emotionally abusing someone, it isn't going to help in that way. You can't do that with a long-term friendship. But you can be direct and honest. And it's painful, but I have a right to do that. And yeah, I'm using the media to do it instead of talking to her about it, because I don't want to talk to her about it. I just wanted to express my feelings. Friendships are complicated. Yes, friend relationships are complicated. But if people aren't respecting you, or they're getting you into trouble, or they're trying to malign you, so you can stay in their group, in their good graces, what's the point? You have to be independent. You have to love yourself and take care of yourself first. You can't hold your friends' emotional stability and needs up with pillars you don't have. It's not good for them to do that. I've seen it time and time again in these cliques and groups where you have like a master manipulator, and they tend to be the most arrogant and insecure people, and they think that whenever they're criticized or their behavior is put on blast or anything like that, that they're a victim. So they crowdsource attention from people to help build them up. And they spend an inordinate amount of time doing that instead of trying to repair themselves and their friendships that they've alienated. Then they get other people into trouble with things, but they're going to say it's the person. They're going to pick a target and say it's their fault that this happened, instead of taking the blame themselves and working through that. I've seen this time and time again. It's a load of horse shit. If you want to see the extreme example, look at Colleen / Miranda Ballinger and look at what she's done. She's alienated her friends. She's involved her friends in her disgusting, predatorial pranks and abuse. She's involved minors in. What the hell kind of a friend is she? But yet she's able to crowdsource this and this attention, and stands were going after people who spoke up against her victims. Okay, these stands put themselves at risk. Most of them probably not even in a position to defend themselves legally. Colleen can. She can hire, the worst lawyer for the worst kind of people, in my opinion, and defend herself in some way. And then, and she doesn't care about what the stands do. They're on their own at that point. Don't ever sacrifice yourself, your money, your time, your emotions into shit like that. Don't. That's not a friendship. That's not showing you respect. People like that only crowdsource affection. That's their point of doing that. They're fucking emotion vampires, and you don't need to give into that. You don't need to feed into that. Have good, healthy friendships. Base it on mutual respect, equality. Set boundaries with each other when it comes up. And it's okay to love your friend. It's okay to want to help your friend, but sometimes there are things you can't do. Don't be an enabler, but don't be so detached that you railroad them. Set up your own boundaries, what you can deal with. Not every friend. Listen, I have different friends with different interests. And if I do something with one friend, doesn't mean I'm alienating my other friend. I don't make it a point to alienate my other friends, like if I'm connecting well. And I'm not alienating this former friend. This relationship's already done. Okay. If we were friends, like her friends, other friends would be different, but there's no point in telling me if I'm not included, especially if we had no mutual people. There were things like that going on that was very hurtful and problematic. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't play around. It's not something that I want to do to somebody, and I'm not interested in doing that. I'll have different interests with different friends, and it doesn't mean I'm alienating another friend if, like, say, I don't invite them in that, because maybe with the other friend I have different interests with, and I'll do those with them. We'll go out to eat, we'll go out to the movies, we'll go for a car ride, something like that. And I'm getting better and better at getting out more and doing things. So, yeah, I'm going to have developing different friend groups to do different things. It doesn't mean that one friend is less than the other, and I don't want to ever make people feel that way. I have done that inadvertently when, because like with my black and white thinking, and at the first slight, blow up and go away instead of dealing with the problem, because obviously there's a problem if I'm reacting this way, right? And it always helps to have somewhat of a reasonable, rational mind when approaching these things. Not too rational that you lose perspective on the emotional side of it. But yeah, you deserve to be treated with respect in your friendships. You earn that respect. You set your boundaries. And if your friends are trying to manipulate you into doing things that are not good for you, that you're not comfortable with, they're not worth it. They're not worth it. This can happen to people. This happens more often than not in friendships with younger people. And I can understand because they're trying to figure themselves out. But I've seen it happen as people in adulthood, even me. Having those kinds of issues, and that there's no reason for that. You don't need their attention if they're not giving you the respect and care and genuine interest into who you are and what you do. um, it's really hard. It can be lonely at first when you start cleaning house, so to speak. But believe me, the time that you spend with yourself, developing yourself and looking after yourself and reevaluating yourself, it's wonderful. It can be quite enjoyable. Um, and there are a lot of things I do by myself. I don't need to crowdsource attention in people. Sometimes some things are better done with another person, but for the time being, I really enjoy doing some of these things by myself, like going to a movie. I don't have to answer to anybody. I'm doing art classes. I love that. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't go to clubs or bars or anything. It's not my scene. Never been really my scene. I like to cook at home. I like to go out on nature walks. There are all these other things that I like to do to help build myself up, build up my confidence. And and in the process of doing that last year, I quite literally worked through two serious phobias that have kind of plagued my life, that I've allowed to plague my life because I see things differently. I think things mechanically. My brain cognitively think different things, which is great because it allows me more time to develop myself and then meet not better people, but different types of people in my life and make new friendships and stuff. So don't sell yourself short, and don't let anybody else do that to you. You take care of yourself first. That's important. I think that's it.